Welcome back all, this is Daz from Model Railroad Techniques. So this week I'm going to dive into all things Flagman and what they are and how they're used on the fallen log railway. They're a very powerful little tool. So a big shout out to my Patreons out there for supporting my channel. So every little bit counts. So without further ado, let's get started. MRT Scale Prints, helping you to add realism to your model railway. We are producing craftsman quality prints in various scales, including HO, O and N scales. We are proudly Australian owned and operated. www.modelrailroadtechniques.com. So what are Flagman indicators? So they work a little bit like intelligent relays that are turned on and off under certain circumstances using particular triggers that we'll go into shortly. So Flagman are able to indicate certain events and execute operations automatically. Flagman indicators are a little bit like contact indicators. So the contact indicators for the newbies out there are the little indicators we put within the blocks to indicate occupancy. However, while a contact indicator indicates if a certain feedback sensor is activated or not, a Flagman indicates that there is a more complex event that has occurred. An example of a Flagman, which I'll go through in a little more detail shortly, is my arrive Flagman, which I've got in all my blocks. So what they actually do is they look out for, so the trigger looks out for particular events. So in this case, it looks out for when a stop marker has fired off. What I mean by fired off is the train has gone the given distance of that block and activated the stop marker for that particular block. So what we'll do, we'll now build a Flagman in its very basic form, and we'll step through some of the things you need to be mindful of. Now Flagmans, so what we need to do, we're in meta mode here, and then depending on how you've set up your ribbons, we'll go contact indicator Flagman virtual contact. So we'll go Flagman, and we'll just put one down, sort of just down here, and we'll open that up. So first tab, general tab, you can give the Flagman indicator a name. So obviously that's very important. And I normally go one step further, and I actually put where the Flagman indicator might be located. So if it's on my central control panel, I'll have brackets CP. So the trigger is where the magic happens. So this is where we add and or statements. And so what we're going to actually do, I'll go, so BS2 block, which is here. And what we're going to do is when a train is current, so a train is in the block, the Flagman will be on. So what we'll do, we'll go and grab a train, assign a train to that. Doesn't really matter what we put in there, but all we do is a current block. So now you can see this is our current block. And now the Flagman indicator fires off. So we've triggered it via the current block BS2, which is currently, as I said, a current block. Now we can add an operations to that. So this is where it becomes very powerful. So we can start schedules via, we can start macros by it. We can do extended accessories, we can turn other elements on, all via this trigger going off. So the one that I quite often use is, which is obviously inherent to Traincontroller Gold, is an access to a variable. Okay, so how do we get into making a variable? So I've just dragged the screen down here a little bit so you can actually see it. So we'll go into the Windows tab and we'll go New Explorer. We'll just center that so we can see it. So here's all a good way of looking at all your bits and pieces in your file. So I've got my variables, and then they start listing below. As you can see, we use variables quite predominantly. We'll go new object, go new variable, okay on that. So then it comes up with, we'll go test variable, doesn't matter what you call it, it's just so I know to go back in. Now there's different types you can have. You can have numbers, we can have text, times, or objects. So, but we're going to do a text one, and we're going to do it global. So I mean globally, it means it can be used anywhere. So the scope, obviously you can break it right down just to specific items within Traincontroller. So we'll X out of that, X out of that, because I'm going to do one that's a variable that's going to show some text. So what we now need to do, we need to go up to the ABC tab or the text tab, and we'll put that there. So at this point we go a little icon called, or sorry, a little code. So you go the percentage sign and V, and then you'll see it puts a square bracket with a question mark in it. So what we actually do there is, now we can actually access that for our variable. All right, so now we've got that there. We can just click on that variable code there, double click somewhere on it after it's highlighted, and we need to scroll all the way down to my test variable, wherever that is, test variable, and then OK. All right, so that's put the variable into that little location there. What we need to do now, we need to go back into our Flagman, and we're going to add that variable to the operations tab. So how you do that is, you probably come in on that. So where you find the variables is control flow operations, I should say, access to variables. We add the variable. We can now go and search for the variable again. So we need to go and select the variable we're going to use. So in this case, test variable. Then we add a value to it. So just make sure if you're going to do a text one like this, we've got assignment, so it gets assigned to it. We've got the text variable and then the value. So I'm just going to put train in BS2, and then we'll enter out of that. Now we'll go out of edit mode, and then what we'll do, we'll just go and drag and drop a train in BS2, which will trigger that Flagman. So the Flagman's on. Now you can sort of see what you need to do, because obviously there's a bit of text here. We need to expand that out. So you can see train in BS2, so that fires off activates the variable. So if we want to now turn this variable off, so what we need to do now, if we take that train out and put it back to where it's actually physically located, you can see the train goes off. But you notice one little thing here, the variable still stays on saying there's a train in it. So the reason why that has happened is we need to go back into the Flagman, and in the operations tab we've got there's two parts to it. There's an on and there's an off. So when we turn it on, we want the variable to be on, but when we want it off, we don't want any text. So we still have to tell Traincontroller that the variable that we want there has no text. So we need to go back down to our test variable, and we'll create it, but we don't want to put text in it. And then we go OK. So you'll see it's a little bit different. So the test variable, but it's got no text in it. But obviously, if you wanted to put a text in that, so you could put no train in BS2, empty track, whatever you want to do. That doesn't really matter. So now what we'll do, we'll put the train back in BS2, or the locomotive, and now we're on. So we'll take it back out, and all being equal, it turns off the variable. A real life application how I would use this on my full-on log railway is what I'll just show you very, very briefly here. So I've currently got the portion of the layout you're looking at is some staging tracks here. Eastbound and westbound tracks. So basically what I want to know is if I'm going to send trains off to staging, I want to know without having to flick through all my switchboards if there's availability of a track. So how I do that is just very, very briefly. So as a dispatcher, I control all my schedules via this control panel here. So with them, what I want to know is if there's actually capacity for that track there. So we'll go up to edit mode, and I'll just quickly show you this Flagman and how it works in its basic form. So the trigger for it is I use other Flagman if I've got an occupied track. So the reason I do that is we use these Flagman for various other applications on Traincontroller, probably a little bit beyond the scope of this. So in short, I want to know if each one of these are fired off or triggered, so to speak. So BS 1 through to 7, which is all these here, gives me over into my operations. I've got BTS, which is Batunga staging, and I want to know BTS full through trains only, so I can actually obviously send trains out there, because I've still got 2 through tracks that can't be used for parking trains, so to speak, and I need to know if I don't have any tracks at all. So what I'm going to quickly do is just going to go and change this, just so I can just put one train in, and it'll just show me at a glance. So I'll just get rid of BS 7 and 4, and then what I'll show you is I'll just put a train, doesn't matter which one, I'll put one in BS 3, and you can see that Flagman is now activated. So what that actually does with the variable, just as I explained the last little segment, is BTS is full. So if I was then to take that train back out of BTS 3, Flagman is now longer triggered, and all being equal, storage available. So obviously the interesting part, so when I just showed you the Flagman very quickly last time, is when I didn't have anything in it, when there was no current train, we physically didn't have any text in the text variable. So on this occasion, on one side, so the on part of the flag, we got trains, BTS is full, but on the off state of the Flagman, we got storage available. So that's just one real life operation, how you can actually do that. So other places on the 4-log railway that I use Flagmans is predominantly in blocks. So I'll just pick one here, we'll go to edit mode, and I'll show the different flags that I've got that I'll use. So normally we'll have at least 3 Flagmen here. And we'll start with the arrive. So the reason why we're picking this out is because you can't access the data from individual blocks for when you have when the stop marker fires off. So what we do here is when a train hits a stop marker, whether it's a train that's stopping at the stop marker or just is going and goes to the stop marker and it keeps going to the next block, we want to know when that occurrence occurs. So we don't have any operations, we don't have any conditions on that. We just want to know when LMS2 in stop fires off, that flag will turn on. Another one is we've got an arrive marker, which is an occupied, which is a little bit different. So when a train first comes into the block and becomes current, so we've got an and then LMS2 in, and then when a train comes into that block, which makes it current, what it will then do is we've got another system here in the background that sends off block names to my central control panel as well. with variables. So this is how all these work here, which is also another system we've built in that assists us with sending around text variables so we can track them on so also we've built in a system here which is an emergency stop system. So in short, a gentleman who I've been working with, he designed this with another gentleman on the forum, and that's an emergency stop system. So basically, in short, it uses a flagman that triggers under certain circumstances. So this one here triggers on and AND. So LMS2 in is current. Emergency button has been turned on, which is this button here, and then it looks for combi groups. So combi groups is something inherent just for gold users, where it looks out for certain things, so certain particular wagon groups, train groups, vehicle groups, and also descriptions that you can make up as well. So, you know, on our occasion, and I will talk about trains moving in a sec, is where a train is doing 1 kilometer an hour or more. The combi group will pick it up, and then it'll set off this flag here, and then the operations tab, it will basically lock the exit left and right, so a train will stop. So in short, the way that works, a little bit off topic here. So if you were to push the emergency button and we got the train coming BS1 going into BS out, what it'll do, as soon as it hits BS out, it'll stop for an emergency stop. So another thing we use flagmans for is trains moving. So each power district, we've got a flagman, and it is a little bit of work to put it together, but the reason why we've got this going is because we can't actually pull any data from Traincontroller via the physical remotes or anything that a train is actually moving. Go figure. However, this is how we sort of get around that, and the reason why we use this, obviously the emergency stop we've just spoken about, is one reason that we use it, and also we've got some watchdogs here that I'll talk about in a sec. So what the combi group is, and this is obviously just for the gold users, it looks out for a train description of a train moving. So each block within the given power district, so trains moving in LMS. So LMS is this whole section here. So each one of those blocks has to be added to the trigger with the train moving. So I'll just quickly go and show you where that sits. So if you go to the train tab up the top, train description, trains moving, we'll just have a look at the properties. So as I explained just briefly before, so the general town, so trains moving is a minimum speed of 1 kilometer an hour. So once a train is going more than 1 kilometer an hour, that flagman will fire off, because the combi group is looking for trains moving in blocks within LMS power district. Obviously you can go various other trains descriptions. You can do maximum weights, lengths, sky's the limit, or maximum speeds as well. And where that comes relevant, if we come across to the watchdog, so what the watchdog does is it's a little componentry by LDT that looks for the pulse that is being sent out to Traincontroller. If it doesn't get that in a certain given time, it'll shut down, so that it's just looking out for whether there's issues with the computer not communicating with Traincontroller. So each section has its own flagman, and you can see I've got 11 sections that all feed back into here, which feeds back into the the watchdog and the dog watcher that is purely to watch over the computer program to make sure it's running correctly and feeding to Traincontroller. That's the end of this video on Flagman. Obviously it's just a very brief look on how I use Flagman on the fallen log railway, and also I briefly went through how I might construct one using a variable. So thanks for watching. Now the question this week is going to be, how do you use Flagman on your Traincontroller layout? So I'd be very interested to see how people are using them, because as I said, there's so much you can actually do, and it's probably one of the most powerful tools in Traincontroller. So please comment below any questions or anything that I might be able to look at doing better as well. I'm always willing to learn and want to learn this great program of Traincontroller. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Make sure you subscribe, click that little bell icon to be notified of upcoming videos. Support us on Patreon, like us on Facebook and Instagram at Model Railroad Technique.